Hey everyone, so today I want to talk about ego and is ego the enemy and how ego relates to sustainable growth. So I think everyone has an ego, but it's really kind of on a spectrum, I would say. So you've maybe at one end you've got Donald Trump, maybe at the other end you've got like Mother Teresa. So yeah, there's a broad spectrum. So in this video I'm going to talk about my experience with ego and what I think is good about ego and what I think is bad, and why I think you need some ego, but if you have too much, then it can lead to overextension and potentially some sort of disaster. Therefore, careful management of the ego is essential for sustainable growth. So yeah, in terms of a bit of background, I think in the past I definitely wasn't even aware of my ego. I think I was so not self-aware that I just used to kind of behave and not really think about it. And there's definitely times when I look back at my past when my ego definitely got the better of me. So definitely when I'd experienced some success, quite often I would just get overconfident, start doing other things, and quite often it would actually lead to something pretty stupid, like I would drink too much or rub someone up the wrong way. So yeah, I think in hindsight, I wish I kind of managed it more carefully back then, but I was young. And that definitely happened when I qualified as an actuary, which seems ridiculous looking back on that now. I guess as well in my time as a hedge fund researcher, I definitely saw the ugly side of ego. So obviously you can imagine hedge fund managers typically have some of the biggest egos out there, and I definitely experienced that. And also having been a hedge fund researcher for like 5 years, it was amazing how many kind of massive egos I encountered that actually subsequently blew up, or their fund ended up closing because they had got too overconfident. So it's definitely a damaging trait if taken too far. There is also a kind of great summary in the book by, it's not really a summary, there's a great kind of detailed description of ego and why it is often the root of a lot of modern problems today. And that's in Francis Fukuyama's book Identity. Yeah, Francis Fukuyama's book Identity has a just fantastic discussion of ego and its kind of role in the modern world. So yeah, definitely a well-documented topic. The title of this kind of episode is also actually stolen from Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy. So yeah, I think there's definitely some reading out there if you want to get more involved in the topic. So yeah, what to do about it? So I started trying to be really self-aware of my own ego, and I think that actually came through a lot of meditation I was doing. So meditation kind of teaches you to step back and observe your thoughts, and it's amazing training really, because if you apply that kind of pause and thoughtfulness about how you respond to things, or the thoughts that kind of arise when certain situations happen, you can become aware of like, oh, is that my ego talking, or is there something that I need to kind of incorporate here? Yeah, is there something I need to be aware of here? Is this a rational behaviour? Is this not? And I think by analysing this, you can become a bit more rational and a bit less driven by ego. So yeah, I think I took this to heart. Ego is the enemy, and sought to eliminate my ego completely. So I almost went too far. And what I found was that, and how did I do that? I basically always put others first in situations. I quietened down, I didn't say anything. I always let everyone else speak first. I was very polite. And interestingly, I think what happened was, it cultivated better relationships and I got more information out of people. But I started to, and that definitely worked within my friendship group, but then in a kind of work setting, I think it actually caused me to fall behind, which is really interesting. So, and why is that? I think it's because at work you're constantly looking to progress, and it's your ego that kind of gives you the energy and the drive and the signal to others that you're ready to progress. And interestingly, I think in a capitalist situation as well, they're kind of expecting ego. Like, it's kind of what everything's driven on. Like, we have one person at the top of companies, CEOs. We have one person in charge of countries, the Prime Minister, the President. So the world's kind of built around that. So if you move too far away from what people are expecting, then it doesn't allow you to kind of do well in that environment, I think, or it takes people longer to come around to it. So then I decided on this other strategy. I should just say as well that at my work, like, it's not that bad. Like, it's not a toxic ego environment. It's just definitely there and required. So what do I do now? Now I try and carefully balance it, and I try and recognise when there is times for ego, i.e., and I say that's about 20% of the time now. So there's got to be situations, environment where ego is required because people are looking for some either leadership or just are expecting that kind of command and controlled type style to come through, because it ultimately does bring confidence in certain people. So it's really important to kind of use that when you see the opportunity. But as I say, that should only really be 80% of the time. You only really need to go all out 80% of the time. And I'm kind of applying, the 80-20 principle from Richard Koch here, and saying, like, look, the majority of your output is going to come from 20% of your outcomes. So try and work out what that 20% is and just really focus on it. And then the other 80% of the time, you work on quieting your ego, and that is actually really beneficial because then you still get the kind of benefits of cultivating good relationships, listening, being self-aware, doing things more for the collective rather than the group. And that actually gives you a lot of information and fuel so that when you do go for that 20%, you have even more information and even more knowledge at your fingertips to apply. And also I just think that going 100% ego the whole time, unless you're an egomaniac, is actually quite difficult. And constantly playing kind of, like an arcade game where you're kind of constantly shooting down people who are kind of attacking your ego. It's just exhausting, and it's not the kind of place I want to be. So I think that balance is much better, and you get the best of both that way. I guess another situation is, so at work you're obviously looking to progress in a certain direction, but then within a friendship group, I think lots of people carry over their ego to kind of social situations, which is interesting, and I think it might tie into the fact that actually being at the top of a hierarchy might give you some sort of satisfaction. I think it's Jordan Peterson said that it gives you some sort of serotonin release. So yeah, people might want to do that, but ultimately I don't think it leads to very genuine relationships, and that's probably not what you want out of a friendship group. And it's quite easy to get sucked into mini ego battles and things, and competitions. It can all be friendly, of course, but like, is it really aligned with what you want to be doing with your life? I think it's important to ask that question. So yeah, in conclusion, I think it's really essential to manage your ego. I gave you some kind of tips and tricks on how to do that, and that's how I've managed, that's how I've approached it. I mean, if you've got any suggestions, please do reach out with them. And then also kind of a kind of discussion around finding the sweet spot between no ego and lots of ego. No ego has benefits, lots of ego has benefits. So you want to kind of find that sweet spot, and the way I do it is, again, by applying that 80-20 principle of 20% of the time apply ego, 80% of the time don't apply ego. And that allows you to conserve energy, gather information, but people still know that it's there if they need it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section down below, and I'll see you in the next video.